Hey guys, welcome to another Thursday edition of the Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. My name is Nick, and today I'm going to be talking about something that Ian and I have actually talked previously about, not on the Vinyl Den, but on our podcast. It was probably about 2 years or so back now. Actually, I think it was actually probably even longer than that ago. It was probably back in 2017, I think it was. But today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 albums of the 1970s. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you click on the link below and go check out the Vinyl Den Facebook group. I know I say it every week, but it's just a growing community. Just kind of continue the conversation about music. Also, make sure you give the episode a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below. And also make sure you hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we release a new episode. So when I was putting this top 10 list together, I really sat down and I tried to pick out albums from a variety of different periods across the 70s, but my really only main rule I had for my list was, not to have multiple albums by the same artist, because I could, if you're going to throw Dark Side of the Moon on there, you could throw The Wall on there, you could throw Paranoid on there, Volume 4, well, there's 4 of your 10 right there, and all 4 of those are absolutely incredible albums, but I couldn't have all 4 of them on the list, so I really wanted to make sure I stuck to only having one album per artist, so they didn't kind of clog up the list too much, and I can kind of spread it out and pick a little bit more of a variety over that top 10. So like I said, Ian and I have discussed this before, and it is actually kind of interesting because it turned into quite the debate, because we kind of came in with our own top 10 lists, and we tried to make a combined list, and we really just don't agree on a lot of music in general, especially from the 70s. But so that's why I kind of thought it'd be interesting to kind of go through my own list today. And it's now several years later, I actually have all of my top 10 lists on vinyl. So the first one is a band that I've loved since I was a kid, and it's the band that Ian always bashes on. He calls them the Nickelback of the 70s. But this is the Eagles, Hotel California. This is actually a repressing from a couple of years ago. I picked up an original copy of Hotel California, probably maybe 2 years or so back, and I didn't listen to it for a long time. It was probably 6 months or more after I bought it that I finally actually put it on the turntable and listened to it, and realized there was just a terrible beat up copy of it. So I had to go out and find a reissue of it. But like I said, absolutely love this album. Got a ton of tracks off it that, of course, everyone knows. It's just a hugely popular, one of the highest selling albums of the 70s, I believe. But that was my number 10. At number 9 is another band that I've just loved for a long time, since I was probably a teenager. Ian actually introduced me to this band, but this band has an album on a lot of the top 10 lists for the 70s, but not this one. Like I said, this is my personal top 10 list. Of course, music is a very subjective thing. You put 100 people in a room, you're going to get easily 100 different answers, maybe even more than that, multiple answers from the same people. But this is Jethro Tall. This is Benefit. This was their third album, so this was from 1970 was when this was released. And it a lot of people will go for Aqualung first, which Aqualung is an absolutely fantastic album. It's actually the album that came out right after Benefit. But Benefit is one of those albums that I think it's got a lot of those deep cut tracks on it that, really kind of have still that bluesy rock sound that Jethro Tall had in the early 70s before they kind of went to a little more of that folky sound in the later 70s. But it's an album that I absolutely love, and that's why I had it at number 9. Coming in at number 8 is another one of those albums that I'm sure is on a lot of people's list. It's an album that, I've loved all these albums really since I was a kid, especially this one. It's John Lennon. Imagine. And this is in there. This is not an older pressing. I'm not sure what year this actually came out, but this is actually the double LP version that has the second disc has a bunch of like outtakes and stuff from the album. So it's really kind of cool album to pick up. I actually got this for a smoking deal. I bought this used. I want to say I paid probably, it still has a sticker on inside. I paid $17 for this. So an absolute steal for an album that, I really could have put higher than 8, but because of the strength of a lot of the other albums I have on this list, unfortunately end up dropping down a little bit. So number 7 and 8 really kind of could have flip-flopped. I really could have put either one in either spot. This is an album that, this is actually the first album that I bought on CD. I resisted CDs for as long as I could. I want to say it was probably 96 or 97 was the first time I bought a CD. Prior to that, I was primarily listening to cassettes and records, really, still at the time. There was actually a really good flea market in my area that there was a guy that sold just absolutely great older rock albums. So it was the records were really easy to pick up still at that time, especially used ones. But this is Neil Young Harvest. This came out in 70, I want to say 71, but it's actually 72. So I actually wrote the dates down in front of me because I'm old and forgetful. But this was an album that I had only heard a couple of songs off of it when I bought it on CD. And I really bought it mainly off of Reputation. And ever since the first time I've listened to it, I've absolutely loved this album. And this is actually one that I still listen to pretty regularly. This is an original pressing from 72. So another one that I got a smoking great deal on. Probably a year or two back. But, yep, so that's why I had it at number 8. I'm sorry, number 7. So at number 6... I really kind of went back and forth on which album from this artist I wanted to put in there. And it was really a hard decision. And at the end of the day, I had to pick one over the other. So I went, this is Paranoid by Black Sabbath. I kept going back and forth between Paranoid and Volume 4. I absolutely love both of these albums. But, Paranoid, I think, was the first Black Sabbath album I ever listened to. I had my dad's copy when I was growing up. I used to listen to it pretty regularly. It's just got some fantastic tracks on here. Obviously, Paranoid is on here. Iron Man, Electric Funeral, which is one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs. But like I said, I had a hard time going back and forth. Volume 4 is equally great, but I ended up going with Paranoid for number 6. So at the number 5 spot is an album that, if I was doing a top albums of this band's catalog, it would be really between, 2 or 3 albums that would be my favorite from this band. But since it was their only release of the 1970s, it made it a little bit easier to pick. But this is Let It Be by the Beatles. Just an absolutely fantastic album. I got into the Beatles when I was probably... it was definitely my early teens, maybe 12, 13, 14 years old. But it's an album that I really went to. I think the first Beatles album I probably listened to was probably the White Album. But Let It Be was probably somewhere right after that. And it's been an album that's been a favorite of mine for a long time. It's got a couple of my favorite Beatles songs on there. Definitely Long and Winding Road. Definitely is up there for me. So is Let It Be. Just 2 absolutely great tracks on an album that really beginning to end is just an absolutely fantastic album. So at number 4, I've got an album that was definitely going to be in my top 5. And I kind of kept going around the order, mixing the order up a little bit to figure out how I wanted it. And I guess it kind of fit where I put it at. So at number 4, I've got Led Zeppelin. Untitled, but it's also Volume 4. So it's just, obviously everyone knows this album for Stairway to Heaven, which is an absolutely incredible song. It's Stairway to Heaven. If you look on a lot of the, greatest 100 songs of all time or whatever, it's definitely up there towards the top. But, I think When the Levee Breaks is actually the best song off this album. It's actually my favorite Led Zeppelin song total. So it was an album that I really wanted to have on there. And that I'm sure most of you guys or everyone has heard this album. But if you haven't, I know I did an episode not too long ago of albums that, or classic albums that people haven't listened to before. And there was definitely a couple people that I saw mention they had never listened to this album before. And if you have not, make sure you grab it and listen to it, because it's, like I said, beginning and end, it's just an absolutely incredible album. So the next two albums are ones that, if you watch this channel and follow me on Instagram, you might not think I'm a huge fan of these next two artists, but they're definitely ones that I think are absolutely beautiful, beautiful albums. The first one this was released in 1976. This is Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life. And Stevie Wonder is, in my opinion, the greatest overall musician that the U.S. has ever produced. And, he plays like, I don't know what it is, 20 or 30 different instruments, just an incredible overall musician. And this is an album that I didn't really listen to for the longest time. I never listened to it until, I would say, within the last 6, 7, 8 years was the first time I've actually ever sat down and listened to this entire album. Obviously, being here in southeastern Michigan, so close to Motown and everything like that, I'm obviously familiar with Stevie Wonder's work. There's a couple of tracks that I'd heard off of this before, but for some reason I never actually sat down and listened to it. But when I finally did, I was absolutely blown away by how incredible this album is. So my number 2, I've got an album that I believe was when Rolling Stone magazine redid their top 500 albums of all time. I believe it was number 1 or maybe number 2 on their list. It's an album that, like I said, if you watch this channel or watch my Instagram feed, you probably don't think I'm a huge fan of, because I think I have actually posted on Instagram before. But this is an album that I picked up probably about 2 years ago. I actually picked this up, and the first 2 pressings I bought of it were, because I didn't buy an older pressing, I bought a newer one, just because I don't know, it's one of those albums that I had a hard time finding a really good, decent older pressing of, so I went the new route. And the first 2 pressings I got of it were just absolute junk. I had to return them and get new ones. So finally, the third time was a charm. But this is Marvin Gaye's What's Going On. And this is an album that was released in 1971. And, if you're not familiar with Marvin Gaye or this album, there's a lot of social, themes throughout this entire album. But it's also a beautifully recorded album. And it's, I think, definitely the masterpiece of Marvin Gaye's career. It definitely deserves to be in that top, couple albums of all time. And it's definitely one that I would, if I was doing my top 10 of all time, not this is the 70s, but all time, I would definitely have this album up there also. And it's one that, if you haven't listened to this album, definitely check it out. It's available on all the streaming services. But I was definitely really happy to finally get a really good copy of this one. All right, so finally down to number 1. And if you haven't guessed what it is, it's pretty easy to see what it is. It's the album that I think not only is the best album of the 70s, but in my opinion, it's the greatest album ever recorded in music. And that is Dark Side of the Moon. This is actually my original U.S. pressing of this. My wife gives me a lot of grief because I've got 8 or 9 different copies of this album. But I've loved this album for a really long time. This is another one of those albums that I had my dad's old beat up copy from the 70s when I was growing up that I would listen to on occasion. I wasn't a huge Pink Floyd fan growing up, if to be completely honest. And for the longest time, it was Dark Side of the Moon, and then I would listen to a little bit Off of the Wall, and that was kind of it when it came to Pink Floyd. And then, probably several years back now, I finally sat down and really listened to this album again for really the first time in probably 20 years, and was just completely blown away. And ever since then, I've dug through Pink Floyd's catalog, and there's a lot of stuff when it comes to music, recording, engineering. There's a lot of stuff that was pioneered off the recording process for this album, and it's one that it has some absolutely great songs. Also, Time is probably, in my opinion, one of the greatest songs recorded also. So it's just absolutely stunning, beautiful album from start to finish. Time is a great song. Us and Them, which is probably my favorite Pink Floyd song, is also off this album. So it's another one of those albums that if you haven't checked this out, go out, stream it, pick up a copy. Just make sure you check it out because it's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful album. Well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Thanks for checking out the show. I know it probably ran a little longer. I didn't really want to ramble on too long about each one of those albums because I could have spent probably 10 or 15 minutes on each one of those albums. And then, you guys would have gotten through one album, probably turned the video off. But I don't know, drop me a comment down below. Let me know what your guys' top 10 is and what you guys think of my list. Obviously, like I said, this is stuff that I think my personal tastes are. This is my top 10. But let me know what yours is. Drop me a comment. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me the thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Check out the Vinyl Den Facebook group. And also make sure you check out our Patreon page. Both the links are down below. And that's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.